All right, Wayne Bettis here, the founder of the Off the Tools podcast. I just want to introduce you to our brand new sponsor, directplumbing.supplies.com. It is founded by a former tradesman who has set up his own plumbing and heating merchants. He has an online shop, which is obviously at directplumbing.supplies.com, and he delivers across the UK. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the show. Welcome to yet another installment of the Trades Growth Summit. I am absolutely delighted to introduce to you Hattie Hasan MBE, who is a pioneering tradeswoman who set up the Register of Tradeswomen. She is the founder of Stopcocks, which is a women-only plumbing company and franchise. She's an author of an amazing book. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, we thank you. Do you know, we're putting on this event to raise money for Help for Heroes. So we really are thankful for your time, do you know, and the story and the lessons that are going to come out over this discussion are going to help other people, inspire them. I can't wait to get started. It's an absolute pleasure to have you across, even though it's on the screen, across from me and in discussion. And I cannot wait. So for those that maybe don't know who Hattie is, could you just give us a bit of a backdrop of who you are, where you've come from?
Yeah, okay. I'll make this as brief as I can. My name is Hattie Hasan. I am the founder of Stopcocks Women Plumbers and the Register of Tradeswomen, as Wayne said. But where did I come from? Well, I came from a very, very poor Turkish Cypriot background. I was brought up in a very oppressive upbringing. I had no opportunities being a girl growing up in my family. The expectations were that I was just going to get married and have children. And that was going to be the measure of my success. I fought against that from very early on. In fact, when I was a teenager, I had to run away from home to escape an arranged marriage. I had death threats. A lot of people in my situation, at my time of life, growing up in the 70s in the same culture as me will recognise what I'm talking about. But basically, I ran away from home, disappeared, and then I had to get to know myself. I did go to university. I was the only person in my family at the time to ever have gone to university. Instead of that being a mark of something to be proud of, my father told me that I brought shame on the family and that I was never going to amount to anything because nobody wants a woman with a brain. So if you can imagine all of that and me just saying, well, I don't think that's going to be for me. So in a way, even though it equipped me, it equipped me well to handle and be amongst a very, very male-dominated arena. I completely went against that and went into a totally female-dominated arena of teaching. So I started my career as a teacher. I taught in the East End of London, in a very, very, very poor area of London. I taught there for nearly 10 years until I decided that teaching wasn't for me, but the education system wasn't for me. I found out that actually I am a natural teacher, so I'm still teaching even though I'm not a teacher. So I looked around and I thought, well, what do I want to do? And I remembered back when I was at school, I wanted to be an engineer or do technical drawing or do metalwork. And I'd never had those opportunities. In my school, when I decided to choose those subjects, they told me those subjects were for boys only. So the school itself had very old-fashioned and sexist ideas at the time. But when I could make my own decisions, I thought, no, I'm going to go into metalworking. I love water. I'm going to try plumbing. Let me just give it a go. And I tell you what, Wayne, literally the first minute, I walked into the room and they were doing lead. They were, lead, what's it called, dressing.
Dressing, that's it, yeah.
Where they make you can get a flat sheet of lead and you turn it into a 3D object. And I was like, this is magic. And, and putting copper together and controlling water. And I'd found my home, so I became a plumber. And then I plumbed basically by myself for 16 years. before I started thinking, hold on a minute, I don't know a single other female plumber. I've never met one. Let me see if I can find some. So I created a website, and people started finding me. Women started finding me, telling me their stories and telling me that their story was pretty much the same as mine, in that they wanted to be a plumber, but they couldn't find a placement. So I just started thinking that, and coming from my teaching background, I just thought, I'm going to miss an opportunity if I don't. If I'm in a unique position to help people. I've created a successful plumbing business. I'm a very experienced plumber, and I know how to pass on knowledge. Yeah. So I got an apprentice. I did manage to find a female apprentice at the college, not far from me, and it didn't work, because I was continuously getting contacted by people all over, women all over the country, saying, can I be your apprentice? Can you help me? And I just thought, well, unless I can clone myself, and I don't think Dolly had been even cloned at that point. Unless I can clone myself, I won't be able to help everyone. So I had to give up on my one apprentice, because my one apprentice meant I was trapped in one place. So instead, what I thought I'd do is I'd create a system by which I was able to help other women. And that was how the glimmer of the idea for Stopcocks, the license, came about. And so I spent some time really looking into the industry and how it works and whether the training was adequate. And, I found it lacking in a lot of ways. And I'm still to this day trying to do something about that. But so I created Stopcocks, the license, in 2010. I wrote my book, and I created that as a license. We started helping women come through. We had at one point we grew as big as 25 women, and it was hard work. I've got to say, it was exhilarating, but it was hard. And so I just thought, I don't know if the franchise model is going to work, because I don't want to just take people's money and let them go. I want to make sure that these women succeed, because they'd come to me because they wanted to succeed as a plumber, because they'd seen what I'd done and they wanted to do it. And I had said that I can help them do that. But as the numbers grew, and I found that there was more of a demand than I could actually supply. I was travelling up and down the country. I was, I was just running myself ragged, basically. And I just thought, if I kind of burn out, then that's going to be the end of that. Who's going to take over after me? So I thought, I have to try and find a different way of doing things. So what we did was we created the franchise, and we did have monthly trainings where we would all meet in a room and we'd talk about our jobs and all this. But when we became the franchise model, I said to those women, do you want to be a franchisee, or do you want to just basically fledge? And I was happy to let some of them fledge, and they went off. And we decided what we were going to do was we were only going to look after 5 women at a time, in terms of that close relationship. So let's fast forward now up until last year, 2020, the lockdown, and we kind of furloughed, and the numbers of women being affected by the lockdown was, in terms of women being abused at home, just skyrocketed. We were hearing every day in the news, another woman was killed, and incidences going up. And I just thought, I've come so far with Stopcocks, I can continue that. But also, I've got relationships now with women's organisations, Women's Aid, Refuge, and our local women's centres. And they've been always asking me, can you find other tradeswomen? Do you know any electricians or whatever? And I thought, actually, we do know some. And I thought long and hard, and I had a long conversation with my mum. My father died a few years ago. I had a long conversation with my mum, and I said, I want to start telling people that, we're hearing it in the news every day, and I want to start telling people that this is my upbringing. So I understand exactly where these people are coming from, and I understand what the needs are. And she said, if we had tradeswomen coming around to our house instead of tradesmen, maybe, a lot of the... See, what would happen is every time we had a tradesman come round to the house, he would come round, my mum would make him a cup of tea or whatever, I was really interested. I was always interested in doing things. So I'd like be watching and learning. And then he'd go, and then my dad would just go absolutely ape. And we'd all get like locked in our room for weeks, and my mum would get beaten to a pulp. And, because she just was flirting with him. And she said if we had tradeswomen coming round, maybe those sorts of things wouldn't have happened. And I do often wonder if I fixed myself by fixing things, because after I'd run away from home and got to know myself and, really started to understand what I was all about, and learning how to do things with my hands, I realized it was really a healing way of, coming to terms with what happened to me, and not being a victim about it, but actually making something of it. And so it's really fitting that this is for Help for Heroes, because I think our heroes and our veterans, they've got so much, and they've got so much within them. And I think that, having survived some horrible things that they've survived, then I really, want them to be able to realize what they've got inside them, and you know, you're still a hero even though you're not doing what you're doing anymore. So anyway, I started the Register of Tradeswomen because I thought, let's try and provide tradeswomen for women who may well be in situations that we were in. And I started a crowdfund, and it was really successful. We smashed our target. We started collecting names in October of last year, and in March of this year we launched. And we've got now about 700 women on our books. Yeah, of all different trades, ranging from stonemasons all the way to like chimney sweeps and locksmiths, as well as your plumbers and electricians and plasterers. And I mean, it's really, really going well. But again, what we've noticed is the demand is far greater than the supply. So, we're still looking for more tradeswomen. And the point of the Register of Tradeswomen, which is a not-for-profit, is to enable us to train women who are survivors of abuse. So all the people who are employed within the company, we've got 4 people, all survivors of abuse, myself included. And we've got a training program that's about to start with 10 survivors of abuse, where we're going to just start teaching them about, right from the very basics, about knowing about how to look after their own homes. And then if more of them want to go into trades, then we can point them in the right direction. And we're making inroads with colleges and companies. And, it's a full-time job. And the reason why I was given the MBE was for my services to women in the plumbing and heating industry. So somewhere, somebody nominated me, some people nominated me. They've done their research and they found that I was worthy of royal recognition, and it is amazing that I'd like to think the Queen knows who I am. So
it's phenomenal. It's from sitting on the other side of the fence. What you've done and what you're doing, and obviously what you've been through, which you just shared a bit about. Sitting here as a male, it can be very difficult for me to ever. I don't think I'd ever truly understand, what that's like. But something that I've done, as I've got older and more mature and sort of more educated, I suppose is the word, in myself, is I try to look at things from other angles, not just through my eyes,
Mm-hmm.
And I think we spoke about this on the preliminary chat, didn't we? Should we dive into a little bit about
that? Let's dive into that, because I think that a lot of times people don't realize what's going on in front of their eyes. And I do lots of talks to corporates and business. I am available for hire, by the way. And just a quick plug, shameless plug.
No, we need to
get. And one of the things I talk about is this thing called unconscious bias. Now, unconscious bias is basically the way our brains like to work out shortcuts. So if we're seeing something all the time, so if we're seeing green trees all the time, say I'm just looking at a green tree, so I picked it as an example. If we're seeing green trees all the time and we see a tree that isn't green, without knowing it, we're like, well, there's something wrong there because that tree is not green. And it's because our brain is so kind of works so quickly that it tries to find many shortcuts. So if you have never ever seen a woman in a trade, if you've never seen a woman plumber or a carpenter or anybody holding a hammer or, a woman, then when you do see one, your brain takes a little double take. It's like, oh, and that is unconscious bias. That's how you kind of tap into when you know that there's something clicked in your brain that you're not used to seeing it. And it's literally, I mean, obviously there's a spectrum. You can go right from like your plain old bigots sexism right the way through to really, really, really like accepting of everybody. And in between this kind of grey areas where the unconscious biases are. And those things happen to you and you notice them, and either you notice them or you don't notice them. If you do notice them and you want to address them, which is the sort of thing conversation that we've had around, just when that happens in my brain, I'm like, well, why is that happening? And what is it? So it's not because it's wrong, it's just because it's unusual. And there's nothing wrong with being unusual. And so then we can start addressing the way that people are, that kind of stereotypes and all of that are formed, because we can start changing our own perceptions of things. So, and for young children, unfortunately, those things are really, really set in stone. They're just literally like sucked from the parents without the parents knowing it, and from society. So we really do need to put role models in front of children so that they can see, if they can see themselves, if they in reflected, then they can see that as their future. So I think that what we were talking about was the fact that these things are going on all the time in people's eyes, but they're just either choosing not to see it or ignoring it when they do see it. And a small minority are addressing it. And I think that is where we need to do the work, because we need to kind of swing that over so that the majority of people are noticing what's happening so that we can make real changes.
Yeah, I think the word unconscious bias sums it up perfectly, because my guess is that vast majority of people, if we were to highlight certain things, their brains would be like, wow, okay, well, yeah, there is a problem, or yeah, I have thought wrong, but just purely based on the history, they're probably their parents, their social circle,
exactly.
Just the normal, whatever normal is, just lets it happen, doesn't it? And until you start looking at things from different angles, and for me, I'm blessed with 4 children, right? 2 boys, 2 girls. And I won't lie, I would have, my views were different to what they are now. Let's leave it at that. A few years back, but as my daughters have got older, it's made me look at things in a totally different way. Just as simple as like my son, who's nearly 15, he'll take the dog out 8 o'clock at night, walk down the road. Could be dark, there'd be no fear for him. He's just doing it. Whereas my daughter or my wife, they wouldn't even dream of doing that, purely just because of society and different different factors that women have to face. And I suppose it was only the point that I sat in their shoes or tried to understand, just a simple analogy there of it, then it started to click, and then I started to think, well, yeah, I've been involved in football for 10 years with my son, and we come across 1 or 2 girls, So my view again there is because people, it's just, again, going back to the word normal, isn't it? They're not, whereas there are massive improvements. I don't want this to just be negative, there is
there are.
Happening. But the quickest way I think we can do it is elevate people that are spreading the message, like yourself, for example, and just simply looking at yourself. Just looking at yourself and then looking at it from a different viewpoint. Put yourself in that little girl's shoes or that woman's shoes and look at it from where she's sitting, and then you can start to see the whole picture, can't you?
Yeah. Well, you can start to see part of, a bigger part of the picture, because obviously we can't still see the whole picture. But yeah, I mean, last night I went out and I met some friends. We went to see a show, and my car was parked on the other side of an area which appeared a bit dodgy. And I mean, I'm a confident person. I'm not afraid, but having to walk back from the theatre to my car, I asked my friend's husband to walk with me. Massive guy. And I just thought, I'm just going to walk with him. And nobody's going to back, and he was like, oh, well, I don't know if I'll be able to do anything if anything did happen. But I said, that's not the point. The point is that I'm walking with a man, or I could just be walking on my own. So what's going to be the perception? Now, if I'm a really confident person, but if I can actually feel that way, then we still, there's a lot of things that need to be addressed, aren't there? It's not just violence, it's all the other stuff. I'm not, let's not dwell on the negative, but, talking about how, as you say, to elevate people, to encourage people that they actually are more than the sum of their parts, and I try to do that with tradeswomen, and in particular plumbers, because that's my kind of my spiritual home, if you like. And we hear stories all the time from women saying, oh, I'm not confident about this, I'm not confident about that. And it's like, well, okay, so let's try and build up your confidence, because actually you know a lot more than you think you know. And, we're our own worst enemy, to be honest, in terms of our confidence. We have to, I know somebody at the minute who's doing her gas, and she is freaking out about doing her write-ups. And I said to her, look, you don't have to stress about it too much, because, look at the number of people there are through the Gas Safe register. For you to do your write-up, you don't have to write an essay. It doesn't have to be, grammatically perfect. It's not going to be marked for its grammar or anything like that. It doesn't, you just have to say, did a soundness test, did this, did that, bullet points. She was like, oh, I'm really freaking out. What if I get it wrong? We all get things wrong. Of course you're going to get it wrong sometimes, but that's how we learn. And I think that our fear of getting things wrong as women, particularly in a domain where we're not the majority, is what actually we need to address amongst ourselves.
Because I suppose just naturally, might be wrong here, but there's a spotlight on any lady that is doing something that, like you said, it isn't, that you're nowhere near the majority, 2%, whatever it is, so just by definition, there's eyes on, right, isn't
absolutely
there? Because it's something different.
Yeah, that's why. And that's why it's like, oh, everybody's watching me. If I make one wrong move, I'm going to be...
Oh, I told you women can't do this, and just
exactly. One woman, it represents the entire sex. It's just, it's not right. I mean, it's the same. One man doesn't represent the whole entire sex either. Do you know what I mean? It's the same both ways. But yeah, we kind of. I mean, I remember. Do you remember that? Those two radio. It was about football, and there was a woman, a line judge.
Yep.
And she blew a whistle for an offside, and all the players were in uproar. And the guys on the radio commentating were like, what does she know about the offside rule? They did both get fired actually for that. But I got a phone call from Leeds Radio, and they said, "Oh, did you hear about this?" I said, "Yeah, I did. What do you think?" Because I always get asked my opinion when things like this happen. I get calls from the media, and I said, that woman, she probably eats, sleeps and drinks the offside rule, because she knows she has to, because she knows everybody's watching her. So there's absolutely no way she would have blown her whistle if she had the minutest percentage of doubt that was offside. And so that is what that's what this woman's going through with her gas thing. It's like, I don't want to get a single sentence wrong. It's like, just and relax. Relax about it. It's fine. You will, And then somebody rang me up once and said, "Oh, I've been trying to do this now for 4 hours, and I just thought I'd give you a ring." I'm like, "So what's your advice?" I said, "Well, my advice is don't do something for 4 hours before you ring me." Because I've already been there. And I can give you hints and tips. So, as one of the really brilliant things,
don't ever want to ask questions or
I know.
ask for help, do they? It can be infuriating sometimes, because I'm the total opposite. If I don't know something, I will ask questions. I will, I will bug someone that I think might be able to help me because I'm too impatient. That's just
Yeah,
my mentality. But so many people don't, and it's
yeah.
like, come
They
on,
don't.
just
They don't.
ask.
I mean, I think they think it reflects on them. But
Yeah,
you know, I've found I've always said to our plumbers and our tradeswomen, if you are not sure about something and you're in the customer's house, just tell them you want to get a second opinion. Now, some have and some haven't because they felt like it reflects badly on them. But what's actually happened, the customer has turned around and said, well, I'm glad that you want to be thorough
yeah,
and get a second opinion. It's not because you don't know, it's that you want to get a second opinion. So it's actually reflected well on them for asking questions, not badly.
yeah,
So
yeah. I
that's
agree.
something I'd like to encourage. I'd like to encourage that for everybody, not only just women, but men as well,
Yeah,
to be able to ask questions and get them answered. Because without asking questions, how do you progress? If you continue to hold it in because you think someone's going to think badly of you, how are you going to learn about that thing? You're just going to
yeah,
feel bad about yourself the whole time, aren't you?
exactly.
Yourself, not what other people are going to think about you. We
Yeah,
are
and quite
all of us.
frankly, like if I always try to personalize this, if you think back to the last someone that asked you a question, did you think anything bad of them asking you that question? Of course you didn't.
No,
You answer the question if you know, or you point them in the
yeah,
direction, and then you move on, and it's
yeah,
done, forgotten about, isn't it?
yeah,
And
yeah,
where
yeah,
it's people just stew on it, don't they, for way too long.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
so obviously, I called you a pioneering woman in the industry. What would you say is right now? Forget the past. Right now, what are the biggest obstacles for getting more ladies through the door and into vans across the country?
Well, I think talking about now, we can't actually forget the past because the reason
Okay.
why we can't get more women in is because of the past. And because a lot of attitudes are not changing from the past to now. So we get phone calls on a regular basis and we work with companies to try and encourage. They'll ring us up and say, we've tried to get women into our company, but they won't come. Can you help? So when we go and delve into their businesses and we look and we see, it's not that they are um, per se, they're not against having women, but there are little bits and pieces about their working practices or some of their documentation, their advertising that can just be tweaked. That would just mean that a woman won't put off. Like for example, I was working with a shower company. And we were fitting a shower cubicle, looked at their brochure and it said 2-man lift. And I just thought, if a woman sees something that says 2-man lift, she's going to think, well, if it takes 2 men, I'm never going to be able to do it. Whereas if it said something like not to be lifted alone or 2 people, then a man wouldn't be put off by that, but neither would a woman.
Yeah.
And it's really simple little things. And again, we go back to unconscious bias.
Yeah.
So, one company said to us recently, well, I didn't know tradesman wasn't a gender neutral term. And I'm like, well, that's because you're all men. That's why. So you can't say tradesman and expect that women will think that you're talking about them.
Yeah.
Unless they go, oh, well, I know they mean us as well, but forget it. So there's a whole bunch of women who just have just putting up with it. But the new ones coming in won't be attracted to that. So it's a kind of a circle, really. I think we need industry to look at itself and change things they've been doing in the past to new things. And I think that everybody in the industry just needs to look at, as we were talking about before, themselves and how we can all address our own unconscious biases about everything. And then the industry will be attractive because at the minute, actually, let's be honest, the industry isn't that attractive to men either,
No.
is it? I mean, there's a huge mental health problem And I think suicide in the construction industry is the biggest killer of men in the construction industry.
Yeah,
So
it's ginormous. Yeah.
it's just not good for anyone, is it? So, we're not just talking about how can we make it more attractive to women. How can we make it more attractive to everyone? And if you can make something attractive to women, then men will be attracted to it too. So I think that by changing the industry so that we can make it attractive to more women, I think we'll actually get more men in. And I think we've been talking about it for years. This skills gap is coming. Well, it's here. It's here, and we see it every day.
Where does it start or finish, or how do you start to fix it? Like the chicken and egg. Do you throw all your effort at school age people and encourage them to force their way into the industry, or does the industry need to be adapted and more acceptant before you push? Do you see what I mean? Or
Yeah, well,
both?
I think you need the chicken and the egg.
Yeah.
Because, we can't go, I go into schools all the time. You can't go into a school and say to a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old girl, be a plumber, when the industry just cannot support her.
Yeah.
You can't. And it's not fair. It's not fair to put girls in that position where they have to change the industry. We have to change the industry. The industry has to change itself. It's not fair to say, you schoolgirl, fight for it. Why should she fight for it? If she wants to be a plumber, she should be able to just be encouraged to be one, supported to be one. And that doesn't mean special treatment, but, women do have different needs. It's equal. Equality means equal opportunities, not the same. We've been told, we've even heard stories of men saying to women, well, why do you want your own toilets? Why do you want special treatment? Why do you want your own toilets? And the women are like, you're joking, aren't you? And they're like, no, we should all use the same toilet if you want to be equal. But basically what they're saying is, if you want to be equal to us, you have to be like us. But we're not like them. So we shouldn't have to be. And the industry should accommodate all of us.
With equal and the same, and because we are different. Yeah? Men and women,
of course.
We are different people.
We have to embrace those differences, don't we? And we need those differences. We need both. We need both for the balance. Nobody's saying we don't need the other, but we've got to address the I think it's called equity as opposed to equity and equality is different to the same.
Yeah. No, I would agree, because I guess, like, I'm just trying to think back to my experience. As like a 16-year-old lad going to college. It was a very lad environment. The bus was filled with, we were going to the construction college. It was filled with 30, 40, 16 to 18-year-old boys, men, whatever you want to call. It just wouldn't be an inviting place. For a young lady to be able to, and until you look at it from that angle, you're just oblivious to it. Until I started speaking with you, like, I wouldn't have thought about a girl going to college to learn to be a plumber. Yeah, I just wouldn't have crossed my mind until I literally thought about it. And then I'm thinking, oh yeah, and then not only is the environment could be quite restrictive,
it's hostile as well, isn't it?
As well.
Yeah, it's hostile. I mean, I did a Children in Need big build a few years ago.
Oh wow!
And there were 300 tradesmen and me. And I must have been one of the most experienced ones there, because I'm a little bit older than most of them there. And the number of men who took tools off me and said, "Let me do that for you, love," and who weren't even plumbers. So there was that aspect of it. And I thought, this is why I work on my own. I'd have to put up with this every day. But on the other side of it, there was a young lad apprentice, and the guys his bosses, they just ripped the poor boy apart. They ripped him apart, and he went off. It was out of the room, and they said, we love him. He's great. And I was like, but why are you so horrible to him then? Why don't you ever tell him that what he's done is good? And they're like, he knows we love him. I'm like, yeah, but does he? Because he looks pretty upset. And but then that's me looking at it from my eyes, I suppose. But the guy was genuinely upset, but I don't know. I think that I just think that if they, why do they rip him apart and then tell me they love him? Why don't they tell him they're really glad that he's there?
Yeah.
Because
I suppose
one of
it's
the
a
best.
bravado thing, isn't it?
It
To
is.
sort of
It
enjoy
is.
that
It is. It
masculine,
is.
banter, all of that sort of
It
environment.
is, but that's kind of I know guys feel like they have to hide their feelings, but I'm hoping that what we recently there's been a lot more talk about mental health and Men Talk. They just won an award at the installer event.
We've got them on the Trades Growth Summit as
Yeah,
well, which is going to be fantastic.
exactly,
So
exactly. And I was so glad that they won that award. By the way, I won it in the first year, but
yeah,
I'm really glad that they won it. And I actually went, I didn't get to talk to them, but I went up to the installer guys and just said, I'm really glad you gave it to them because this is something that needs to change.
yeah.
The industry needs to change, not only for women, but for its men. It's just got to, and
Yeah.
it's going to help all of us.
And I suppose it's like anything, people see the change as too big of an obstacle, but one step at a time, isn't it?
Yeah,
We know you must know you're not going to wake up tomorrow and the world be how it should be and everyone gets a fair crack. It's not going to happen,
yeah.
right?
No,
Things
it's not
take
going to happen.
time, and dedication and you obviously you're on your journey of making change, step at a time, change this, change that,
Yeah, yeah.
educate
And I
people.
do think that because of it, because I've been at it so long, I can actually see, change. And I do think that, kind of a little bit boastfully, I think I've had something to do with that.
Oh,
Because I've just
100%.
been banging on about it for so long that people are probably thinking, let's change for God's sake to shut this woman up. But
There's
they
no
won't.
question.
They won't shut me up.
I think I said it to you the other week. I think especially with the growth of social media and platforms and that,
Yeah.
you smashed the door open, and
Mm.
and gratefully, a lot of ladies have walked through,
Yeah.
because of the graft that you put in, and the opportunities that you opened up, and it's
Yeah.
brilliant to see. If you go on Instagram now, you've got loads of tradeswomen from all different
Yeah.
industries, not just doing the job. Doing the job is one thing, yeah. Anyone could just go to work and keep their head down and do the job. They're
Mhm.
showcasing, aren't they? As in, they're
Exactly. Yeah,
saying, "Look
exactly.
what I
And
can do."
being visible.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't
Yeah.
think that many of them would have had the courage without someone like yourself,
Mm.
in the earlier part of that journey of creating that acceptance
Yeah.
of that being a possibility for them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, no,
It's really great to see. It's really great to see. Obviously our percentages still need to rise up,
yeah,
but it's uplifting to see that that's the case. And then with the MBE, and what I hope is that I get access into the higher levels of industry, so that we can like look down and make sure we can support all of those women coming in. Because a lot of the time, what happens is women come in, and then they will be promoted because they'll have done their time. They'll be promoted, and then they have to start again because the company has to start again because there's no women coming up underneath again. So we need to create an ecosystem where there's always an influx of women. And I think that I'd love it to go into a school and say, right, I want you to draw me a plumber, and out of 10 children, 3 of them draw a woman. That would be amazing.
yeah.
Because you go in now, you say, draw me a plumber, and they all draw men.
I did a speech. Well, it must have been. No, it couldn't have been last year because we was in lockdown. It must have been the year before, and it was year tens, right? And there must have been a hundred of them in the room, I think. And the minute I said what I did and what I was, not one girl was engaged. Yeah, literally, because basically you could walk to different parts of the room to listen to who was
Yeah.
speaking, and not one girl come over. And for me, that was like, oh, okay. So when we all sat back down, I sort of then addressed a few of the to the girls. I said, look,
Mm.
it's not just a male industry. There's no, it's not you can do it because you're a girl and you can't do it. and hopefully maybe a few of them lit up to the idea that there is the opportunity. But even at that such young age, they were like, well, no,
Yeah.
that's not
That's not for me.
that's not something a girl can do. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. And when I go into a school and I eventually tell them I'm a plumber, the girls are very excited.
yeah.
You see, and when I
Because
if
your proof's in the pudding. It's easy
exactly,
for
I
me
am
to
the
stand
pudding.
there and say
That's
it,
it.
but
Yeah.
you're the proof in the pudding, aren't you?
Yeah, that's
Is
right.
that the
That's right.
analogy?
Yeah, the proof of the pudding. I am the pudding. Yeah, and if I when I was on the tools, when going to people's houses, if they had daughters, they would follow me around. You know, what are you
Yeah,
doing? Why are you? You know, and I talk to them about the tools and this and that and fixing things, and they'd be fascinated. So I think the interest is there. It's there from a very young age, and it needs to be nurtured. And you know, during careers days as well, we need to. I mean, I was taking part in back in the 80s, when I was thinking of leaving teaching. I left teaching in 1989. I became a plumber in 1990, but I was approached to do to be part of a school pack, where it was photos of people doing non-traditional jobs. So I was doing some tiling at the time. So they took a photo of me doing tiling, and they took a photo of a male nurse and things like this. And so that was back then. And these things are still being produced now. I still get contacted to say we want to take some pictures of people in non-traditional roles. It's like, oh, 30 years now. Okay. Let's drop the word traditional, and let's just,
yeah, because
you
I
know,
suppose that's a by using that word, you're
yeah, it really restricts
re-emphasizing the
everything.
unconscious bias, aren't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, exactly. Let's drop traditional and just say women in different roles, men in different roles. And let's make it so that you don't feel like you're doing something forbidden, or if you want
yeah.
to do something that's not generally considered something that a woman should do.
So, yeah, no, I agree. This next question has just come to me. So if you haven't got an answer right now,
I'm
I
sure I'll think
understand.
of
It's not a
something.
problem. So it's just I think it's quite poignant to ask it. So obviously we're in a male dominated arena, yeah, and by definition, most of the majority of decision makers in this industry are men. Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
what can we men do, yeah, when we're advertising for that next plumber or that next apprentice, or giving someone that next opportunity? What can we actually do that could help this situation and the evolution of everything that you're trying to do?
Okay, well, two things. I do have an answer. Two things. One of the things is that when you do your advertising, if you've got images, try to show perhaps an image of a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, men won't think, oh, they want a woman, but women will think, I might be able to apply for that job.
Yep.
So can you see the subtle difference there?
Yeah.
Talk about your company and how it includes everybody.
Okay. Yeah.
So talk about the things that you're doing that makes it feel like it's inclusive. So it's not about, okay, so I want a plumber. We know that they can all do the job. It's not about that. It's about the other stuff surrounding that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you can do in your actual advertising, your campaigns, and you're talking about it. But the other thing you can do is we've just created a job site
Okay.
on our website. It's not gone live yet. And we're going to be targeting that job site towards women looking for jobs in construction.
Okay.
It's the only site that's going to be just around that I can think of. There might be others, I don't know them. And so when we launch that, if you're a company looking for women, you don't have to say we're looking for women, because obviously you can't say that. That's not equal ops. But you can put it on a site that women are going to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. Put it in front of the
So
right audience.
in front of the right audience, yeah, yeah. But you still need to make that woman look at your company and go, oh yeah, this looks like something that will fit in with. rather than, am I going to have to put up with the same old crap about people asking me out, or, looking at my backside, or, all the things that are the old ways.
Yeah. And I suppose that's the hardest challenge there, isn't it? Like, that's years of distilled ideas and norms, isn't it? But I wanna try and, we can't change the past. We can only change the future, can't we? So
we
a
can.
couple of tips, for anybody watching, can just maybe make it a little bit easier, a little bit maybe less daunting for someone to apply for that job. Just, like you said, to me, changing the image of the advert it's neither here nor there, is it? By me
exactly.
a lady on it isn't going to discourage a man from applying.
That's right.
But
that's right.
It might just give someone the confidence to think, okay, this company might be a bit different to.
I'd just go very, very slightly further, and I'd say, instead of having just one woman, because one woman is a token gesture, have two women in your images. Because
make it clear that it's
just make it clear that we're not just having this woman here as a token, and also try and make your images real. I was interviewed by a newspaper years and years ago, and instead of using a picture of me doing some work, they used some stock image of some skinny girl lying under a sink, and it was so obvious that she wasn't a plumber. And I just thought, anybody looking at that who is a plumber will know that that is not a plumber. So how can they take this article seriously if they can't even find a real picture of a real plumber? So try and make your images realistic.
Definitely. Well, thank you for answering that. I'd like to say that weren't one of the sort of planned questions. I just sort of rolled with.
No, it's a good question. It gave me a chance to talk about our coming up job site.
Yeah, which is fantastic, and again, there will be criticism to what you're doing, as with anyone that is trying to make change. You always get criticism. What would you argue back to someone saying, well, why is there a job site just for ladies?
I would actually say the job site is not just for ladies. The job site is for anyone, but we are going to target it towards women.
And because I don't think there's anything wrong with target. I have a target customer, who I want to work with as a business coach, and it's no different, is it?
That's right. It's no different. It's no different.
You know your niche.
Yeah, I mean, we do. We've always been, calling my company Stopcocks has created a bit of a flurry amongst some blokes, but it's like, it's take a joke. It's humour. It just means that I'm not, I've got a sense of humour about it.
Yeah, no, I always, I love the name. I love the name. You can't, it to me, it's needed. Do you know what I mean? Because it's obvious. It's there. The name's there, and it says what it needs to say, and it just shows that it's tongue in cheek but funny. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a mixture of like loads of things. I do. When I first saw it, which, God, would have been a few years back now. At first I was like, "Whoa, that's a brave name," and then obviously I got to know who was behind it and everything, and love.
Yeah, I do think that's the thing. Just look slightly deeper, and you'll realise, when one of the biggest discussions I have with guys is, why are you only helping women? And I'm like, well, because out of 100 of you, there's only one of me. And I need help. And if there's going to be 200 of you and only one or two women, then 200 people are going to get help, and the two women need someone who's going to help them. And that, I'm not like saying I'm not going to help you, because I am helping you, because I'm here talking to you. You're asking me what. I did a talk to a bunch of exactly that. It was 200 and there were two girls. And I got that question, someone at the back who was heckling me, "You're sexist, you don't want to help me." And I'm like, well, I'm helping you. I'm telling you now how you can stand out from the crowd and be a successful plumber. So that's what I'm here doing. But my company, Stopcocks, actually is going to help those two girls, because you've got 100 odd companies who can help you. And it it's not about not helping them. It's about supporting a group that needs support. It's like, they're help for heroes. They need the help. We'll help them. No one's saying, well, what about helping blah, blah, blah. No, we're helping heroes today. That's what we're helping.
Exactly. You've got to focus your attention on something. If you try to just, blanket across everywhere, the message gets lost. The effects just don't happen, do they? So I feel it's always a
and you've got to pick your battles, haven't you? You've got to pick where you go. And if you start, like you said, if you start going like that, you end up doing nothing because you're not effective. So I am like that. I am kind of tunnel vision about this subject.
Yeah, and you should be proud of that as well. And no one's argument will ever, justify any alternative course, will it? So
no,
we're coming up towards the hour mark. What would you, for anyone sitting there? Hopefully there's ladies watching this, but if there's not, if they do want to know more and want to explore trades as a career choice, where's the first step for these young ladies to go?
Well, you can always, we've got two websites. So we've got stopcox.uk and we've got registertradeswomen.com. So you can have a look on there for information. The Register doesn't have many blogs, but the Stopcox site has hundreds of blogs around coming into the plumbing industry. You can find out all sorts of information there. What I would suggest is if you want to explore, pick up some tools. I mean, I imagine that if you're looking at this and you've already thought about it before, it's in your mind and that's why you're watching this. Go to your local colleges, find out what the information is, let us know about you. We might be able to point you in some direction. It's difficult to give blanket information because there are so many different routes into the industry. So the thing that I would do is even check out your local housing associations. There might be apprenticeships on offer there where they will help you get into a trade and help you through an apprenticeship. If you're watching this, you can't find a placement, then I would suggest go to your local housing associations or contact insurance companies and just find out if there are any opportunities for you. I'm not saying there will be, but those companies have they've got targets to meet with having certain numbers of apprentices, and certain of those have to be women. So, and they're not just doing it because they're positively discriminating. They're doing it because they want to increase their numbers of women.
Yeah. And on that note, I think you've answered the question there by where you've pointed people. Is it the bigger organisations that are leading the charge, and the smaller businesses, owner-operator businesses that are maybe less likely to take that young girl on, or
Yeah. I mean, it's the way it is. Our industry is full of sole traders, and it's really difficult for it. Like, I found it difficult as a sole trader to just look after one person, and I had to create a company in order to look after more people. So I do think that the large organisations, they've got the budget, they've got specialist people who are doing that. Whereas if you go to a sole trader, time is money. And, that sole trader might not actually be able to teach you stuff because they're too busy with their head down. And you might just end up carrying the bag or watching out for a parking meter or, things like that. And we do hear stories of people who they say, I've been going out with this person for 2 years and I still don't feel confident. And I'm like, well, obviously that person has been too busy to actually show you anything. Or they've never left you on your own, or they've left you on your own and then just felt like not confident in you themselves, and so they've taken over because time is money. And I can understand why all that happens. So that's why I kind of say we need to change the industry to make it more inclusive. But at the minute, those bigger companies are the ones where the spaces are. Or taking the lead.
The nail on the head there, though, with the smaller companies. I've had many apprentices, and some I failed. Purely based on exactly what you've just said there.
Yeah,
and that's where maybe people like yourself that have now got access to different levels of discussions, I think that's probably a nice way to put it.
Yep.
You know, there needs to be help for companies, for smaller companies, because, you know, I know that when we take on an apprentice, I can pretty much 6 months is I'm losing money. It's going to cost me time. It's going to cost me effort. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be
Yep.
burnt marks. There's going to be, you know, all of this stuff.
Yep.
Then maybe even 12 months. Then finally they start to sort of, you know, get the bit between them. But why should I have to, you know, lose the money, the time, and everything?
Yep. Yep. It should be.
Crazy,
Yeah, it is crazy because it's like we've got this skills gap. We want to fill it up. So what we'll do is we'll get all these people who are strapped for cash and time to teach the next generation. What's that about? No. If you wanted, if as a government or whatever, whoever's in charge, if they want to increase bring it up. I mean, I think trades and construction are two different things. Okay, so there's the construction industry, which builds the houses and what have you, and it's the trades that go in and make it work. And they, at some point, they separated themselves. So there is a big difference between trades because not everybody wants to work on a building site, and you know most people earn their money by going into people's houses, and it is a very difficult question, and I understand it's difficult to deal with. So the big companies that concentrate on going into people's houses are the places where you are going to get the most experience. I mean, I've known women who have gone on building sites and they've spent 3 months just doing soil pipes. So they don't know anything about plumbing. Yeah. All they know is how to put soil pipes on a house.
How to do A, B, C, D,
So they're finished, they're qualified, but they come out and you say, can you go and do this? And they're like, I don't know how to do it. I'm qualified, but I don't know how to do it because all I've done was I've worked on a building site for 3 months, but all I've done is put soil pipes on. Tell me to do a soil pipe, I'll do it.
Training gap, isn't there?
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. Yeah, we could talk about this forever.
Male, female, you know, that's just
absolutely.
That's an industry-wide problem, isn't
it?
For certain.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah,
there's a lot of
things. I can get you on the podcast and we can discuss that one.
Yes. Yeah, another time. Yeah, because we could talk about that forever as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to get this wrapped up. So any closing words of guidance, inspiration that you want to leave the audience with?
I am always loath to say if you want to do it, fight for it. I don't want to say that because I want to actually make a world where you are invited to come and join it if you want to. It is a fantastic industry, actually. When it works, it's brilliant. I mean, there's nothing better than controlling water, making it bend to your will. It's almost like being, godlike, if you pardon the expression. But, to get into the guts of a house and find out how it works. I've always described myself as a passionate plumber, and I think it's a fantastic place for anyone to be in, and it's a really brilliant place for women, and particularly self-employed, because you got the flexibility, and now with our community you've got the support. So please, welcome, come. That's all I can say.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And I'm going to make sure that all the links to everything that you're involved with are all around the video. So anyone that does want to learn more can go on them links and see how to move forward. And I just want to close this on that, if you're sitting here and maybe just thought about this for the first time or re-looked at it, and this is aimed at men, okay? You can be the change. Unless people like me, take them steps to change, nothing changes. So be that person, see what you can do different, and let's all lead by example.
Yes, and if you see something that's not quite right, call it out, guys.
100%, yeah. Our silence with everything, you can apply this to racism, sexism, homophobia. The silence of people can be worse than the actual incident. Does that make sense? Because it reaffirms people's generalizations and stuff. So definitely agree with that. Definitely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much for your time. As you know, we're trying to raise money for Help for Heroes. I always get this wrong. Which way am I pointing? That way.
Yeah.
We're raising money for Help for Heroes. So if you haven't already, please go on and donate and get your 3 days access pass, which is lifetime access on demand. It's going to be like Netflix. You know, you can come back to any of these episodes whenever you want for the whole lifetime, simply by donating to Help for Heroes. So thanks again, Hattie. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, and I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
I really hope you enjoyed the show. I just wanted to put it out there for anyone listening that I offer business coaching, but also life coaching. My life is centered around something called the 3 Bs, which stands for body, business, and balance. When you work with me as a coach, we tackle all 3 aspects of life. So you as an individual, body, mindset, health, fitness, knowledge, education. Business B obviously stands for your business, improving, maximizing opportunities, elevating, making more money. And balance stands for for friends, family, loved ones, making time for everything in your life. And the 3 Bs is the core element to that. If you'd like to learn more, I would ask you to reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you might be consuming my information. Or you can email me directly at wayne@offthetools.co.uk. I'm here waiting to assist you to elevate across all aspects of life. Have a good one. No excuses. Let's go.